Melville Fuller and Escobedo versus Illinois, 1964. Melville Fuller was born on February 11, 1833 in Augusta, Maine. Fuller was married to Callista O. Reynolds for 6 years, but the wife later died. Then in 1904, he married Mary Ellen. He had several children from both marriages. He was elected as a Democrat to the Illinois Constitutional Convention of 1861 and to the State House of Representatives in 1862. In 1853, he graduated from Bowdoin College. After, he trained in law and studied at Harvard Law School. He later settled in Chicago, combining both politics and law. Fuller was active in the Democratic Party and spent most of his legal work on issues relating to real estate. President Grover Cleveland offered Melville Fuller appointment as Solicitor General, but Fuller declined. Then Grover Cleveland selected Fuller for the Chief Justice position, in which he accepted in his honor. There were objections about Fuller's sympathies for big corporations, and Northern Republicans questioned his loyalty to the Union. In the end, however, Fuller was approved. While on the bench for 12 years, Fuller oversaw some of the court's most controversial rulings. The landmark cases Fuller worked on was Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, and Lochner v. New York, 1905. In the Plessy v. Ferguson, 1896, the court upheld a Louisiana law that called racial segregation in train cars. This decision helped reinforce the practice of racially divided facilities, including schools. In the Lochner v. New York, 1905, the court struck down a state law that limited bakers' work week to a maximum of 60 hours. The decision was viewed as the court acting in the best interests of business than the people. Melville Fuller then died July 4, 1919.
The U.S. Supreme Court case is called Escobedo v. Illinois, 1964. This case involved the suspect Danny Escobedo, and on January 30th, 1960, was the date that led up to the Supreme Court case. Escobedo was suspected of killing his brother-in-law on January 30th, 1960. Danny Escobedo allegedly killed his brother-in-law due to the fact that he wasn't treating his sister correctly. The case took place under the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. The case was argued on April 26, 1964. He was arrested early in the morning with no warrant and was interrogated for about 18 hours with no attorney. He was then let go and made no self-incriminating statements. His friend Benedict de Gerlando was later arrested and told the police that Escobedo was the one that shot his brother-in-law. He was then arrested for the second time on January 30th and was not able to have an attorney or lawyer in his interrogation room. He was convicted of 20 years in prison and finally confessed. Those who were involved in the case were Danny Escobedo, lawyer of Escobedo, Barry L. Kroll, the state's lawyer James R. Thompson, Justice for the court Hugo Lafayette Black, William J. Brennan Jr., William O. Douglas, Arthur Goldberg, and L. Warren. The justices against are Tom C. Clark, John Marshall, Harlan II, Potter Stewart, and Brian R. White. Danny Escobedo tried to plead by the Supreme Court of Illinois. This is due to the fact that the Illinois Police Department didn't follow the rights of the Fifth and Sixth Amendment when arresting Danny Escobedo. The Fifth Amendment is the right to no self-incrimination, and the Sixth Amendment is the right to an attorney. Neither one of those were done, and this should not be done because nobody knows when someone is actually guilty, and the fact that there wasn't an attorney around made it even more difficult to know if the person was guilty or not, and to not suspect anybody of being guilty without proof. On June 22, 1964, Escobedo won this case and Illinois lost. This was decided by the Warren Court under Earl Warren. This case was brought to the point of standing in interrogation process, which should have never happened without a lawyer in the room. The police were making Escobedo seem like he was the murderer in this case, and they were suspecting him not much of a witness, but as a murderer. Escobedo was guilty, but the amendment rights made him not guilty. The final vote was 5-4, 5 votes being the majority and 4 votes being the dissent. The Escobedo wasn't able to use his statements in the case and didn't know that he was able to use the statements in the case that was made in the interrogation room. Chief Justice Goldberg was the one that made opinions towards helping Escobedo fight this case because he wasn't able to have the rights of the Fifth and Sixth Amendment. These amendments are to be able to use today because of the fact that everybody should have an attorney in the room while they are being interrogated. This is because people should always be treated innocent until proven guilty by a lawyer. All people should also be read their Miranda rights because it leads to having an attorney in the interrogation room at the time of your arrest. The case today leads up to a civil case because of there was no right to criminality due to the fact that there was no criminal justice, but this messed with the laws and the amendments' rights, which meant that there was denial and violation of counsel, and there was denial of having Miranda rights dealt with, and this made the case very struggling. Always remember that everyone has the right to these amendments, and there shall be no blame for it.